Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week I'm going to talk a little bit about color, specifically the use of color in landscape painting. So I'm not talking about color in portraits or anything like that, just landscape painting. And I'm just going to sort of try to talk about a couple of points. This is not a super in-depth video or a very academic video. It's mainly just me appreciating and sharing some ideas about some great artists and some great artwork, and specifically how they use color, or some ideas about that. So start off with Vincent van Gogh, or Van Gogh if you prefer. Both those pronunciations are wrong, so let's just call him Vincent. Vincent was, in my opinion, a bit of a master with color. I really like color schemes in a lot of his paintings. This one, immediately just looking at the colors, never mind what's going on, just looking at the colors, I think we can say that this is summertime. Maybe late summer because they're making hay, but it's definitely summertime and it's a hot sunny day. You have blue sky and the sort of orange and yellows of the hayfield. So just for those two colors, the blue and the yellow, Vincent is capturing that sort of feeling of people out working in a hayfield on a hot summer's day. So color is very powerful in that sense. It can immediately set the scene in terms of the season that we're looking at. In this case, I think Vincent van Gogh mainly used representational colors. So sky is blue, the grass is green, and so on. But I do think that he sort of turned the dial up quite a bit. So a lot of his colors are very saturated, very strong colors. And in this case, because we've got oranges and blues working and yellows as well, they're sort of complementary color scheme. So the oranges and blues are kind of fighting or struggling against each other, or they're sort of in each other's face. They don't just sit there quietly, peacefully together. They have that sort of complementary color contrast going on. And that, I think, makes it even stronger. The color scheme then is very strong. Again, to me, suggesting it's a very hot summer's day. This is another painting by Vincent, not one of his best known paintings, but again, I like it because it captures the feeling of the season and the weather. And these are important things in landscape painting, as sort of establishing the weather and the season. And the white, his use of white and blue sort of suggests maybe frost or snow on the ground. So this is a colder season in contrast to the summer's day of the previous painting. So as I say, color, very powerful tool in landscape painting. You can set the scene. You can let the viewer know whether this is spring or winter or summer, what sort of weather, what sort of season are we in. And I say, I think that's important in landscape painting. Usually, not always. Another example, again, a winter scene. This is by Alfred Sisley. He was one of the original Impressionist artists, small group of Impressionists, and he was one of the few, some would say the only Impressionist artist who stuck with the Impressionist style right through his life, right through his art career. Camille Pissarro kind of stuck with it, but he did get sidetracked for a short time, a few years maybe, by the sort of neo-impressionists, the divisionists or pointillist, whatever you want to call it, that sort of style of making little coloured dots on the canvas. He got sidetracked with that for a while before coming back to Impressionism. But in this one, again, winter's day, snow on the ground, blue sky, so maybe it's been snowing, the clouds have moved on. I like the way that he suggests the shadow. So in the foreground, sort of left-hand side, we have this sort of triangle of shadow, but it's not black, it's not dark grey, it's blues and greys. And the Impressionists were they liked doing this. They liked using colors that weren't black and dark grey for shadows. So they went outdoors and they painted outdoors and they observed the way the light was interacting with the landscape, and they noticed that shadows are not necessarily black. You know, you could have green shadows and blue shadows and all kinds of things. It depends on what the sun is shining on, what it's shining through, etc. But in this case, I think it really works. It helps to show the undulations of the land and the shape of the land. It sort of dips down and then rises up towards the right hand side, and that's catching the sunlight. So again, color can suggest all of these things within a landscape. It can suggest, you know, undulations in the land, hills and valleys and little troughs and things. It can add interest to the landscape instead of everything being quite flat. So it's something that I don't really use, but I would like to start using in landscape painting as well. Thinking about the colors and how the shadows work and where the sunlight is coming from. Now, all of those previous examples were pretty much representational use of color. But of course, that's not the only way to use color. So in this is just a little crayon sketch. I forget the artist's name, but he was an expressionist, German expressionist artist. But I wanted to include this one because it shows non-representational use of color. The colors are, well, there is a little bit of representation in there. There's a bit of green suggesting grass and so on, or the trees have a little bit of green in them. But it's getting away from purely representational color. And it's the idea that we can use color to suggest other things within a landscape. How do you feel about the landscape? How do you communicate that to the viewer of your paintings? I think all of that is very interesting, and it suggests that there are ways of using color that are not purely or just representational. And I think if you accept that, it opens up all kinds of possibilities that otherwise would stay closed. This one, again, another German expressionist artist. I'm still getting into expressionism and trying to learn more about it, so I haven't learned all the artists' names yet. With Impressionism and so on, I can pretty much name the artist by looking at the painting. I'm not nearly at that stage with Expressionism. But anyway, this artist, I know that this artist was a German expressionist, and he lived sort of the borderlands between Germany and Denmark. So sort of southern Denmark, northern Germany. And that area was, at that time, a lot of marshland, a lot of windmills, very rural sort of landscape. That's where the artist lived and apparently enjoyed living there, enjoyed living in nature. And then the Danish government decided that, at least on their side of the border, they were going to drain a lot of the marshland, and they wanted to turn it into farmland. They saw the marshland as being very unproductive, and they wanted to increase the amount of farmland that they had. So the artist's use of color here is kind of a bit melancholy. It's a little bit sad, and maybe it reflects the idea that the artist is losing this natural place that he loves so much, and it's all going to disappear and be transformed completely. So again, it's the idea of getting away from representational color. You can use colors to suggest how you feel about the landscape or changes in the landscape and things. And I say it opens up all kinds of possibilities if you decide to start doing that. And again, it's something I want to experiment more with. Up to now, I haven't really experimented that much with this use of color, but it's something I want to try. Then the last one is the absence of color. So color is a very very powerful tool in the sort of artist toolbox when it comes to landscape painting, but you can also get away from color, just black and white, maybe a few grays. This one works, I think, because of the shapes of the mountains. Again, somewhat expressionist painting. So color is not essential, and sometimes black and white can be very powerful, but certainly using color either as a representational way or non-representational way gives you that extra dimension to play around with. Okay, so like I say, it's not an in-depth or academic video, it's just me sharing some ideas and thoughts about use of color in landscape painting and some of the things that I want to experiment with in the future. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching and listening, and hopefully see you again in next week's video.